Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Gemini, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of June 2023. I hope you're well. I'm using the Tarot of the Abyss for you today. Oh, and happy birthday, for it is your season. Before we begin, if the reading resonates with you and you'd like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end. That is the first link in the description box. The second link in the description box is to the Order of the Phoenix, my private community over on Circle. You can get access to all of the extended content for no extra cost, and you also can hang out with an extraordinary group of people. They really are quite extraordinary. And we're setting up classes and all sorts of things there. So if that sounds like something you would be interested in, please do feel free to avail yourself of that link. Now, let's see what's going on with you, Gemini. Can I have 3 cards for Gemini, please? Oh, we have the 9 of Wands in your recent past. Tell me current energy for Gemini, please. 10 of Cups. That's beautiful. Actually, when I picked up this deck, that was the one card that was left on the table, and I looked at it and I did wonder if it was going to come out for you. There we go. There it is. Let's flip this around so you can see it. And what's coming towards Gemini, please? We have the Wheel of Fortune and Death. Good Lord. Are you ready for a big month, Gemini? Because I think you're about to have one. We have, let's move these cards where you can actually see them. We have the 9 of Cups at the bottom of the deck. And notice that what we have going on here with the double 9s is very much centering you in whatever happens next, but with an eye on what is best for the collective harmony, right? Collective union, the people that are around you that are so important to you at this point. Maybe it's even, you know, as straightforward as family. You know, that's possible too. But we've got some big changes coming up, and these are fated and destined changes for you, Gemini. I'm afraid if you were hoping for a quiet month, I don't think you're going to get one, but I do feel, if I can put these here where you can see them, I do feel that whatever it is, it feels absolutely glorious. It's funny how on Instagram, which I have been attending a little more regularly than usual recently, there's people in the spiritual community always kind of herald the start of a new season. So, you know, when it's Capricorn season, everybody's like, right, think about your goals and your core values and all that kind of thing. You know, if it's Sagittarius, it's let your hair down, have some fun, have a bit of excitement, do some exploring, do something adventuring. But I cannot remember a time where I have seen so many people who have been so positively buoyant about the advent of a season, and it's yours, Gemini. Like there's an energy about it that has been, well, that is unusual as far as I can tell, at least anyway. So whether you know it or not, it seems like your energy is kind of saving everyone's sanity at this point. And did you ever consider that you might be the person who did that? I'm not sure, but it's just an interesting thing that I noticed. Anyway, so I want to get some clarifiers out before I say any more, but this is huge, and there isn't any way of spinning it where it's not huge, right? Each one of these cards, in and of their own right, would indicate some big changes coming in, but arriving together, that is spectacular. And with the cards that are surrounding it too, be prepared. Hold on to your hats. Tell me about the 9 of Wands, please, for Gemini. We have the 5 of Wands. And that's the 2 of Pentacles. That makes perfect sense for the kind of energy that I'm feeling, and I'll get into that in a second. Tell me about the 10 of Cups. We have the 2 of Wands, for sure. And we have the 5 of Cups. And tell me about the Wheel of Fortune and Death, please. The energy just keeps getting bigger, Gemini. Holy crap. What do we have here? We have the World, and we have the 9 of Swords in reverse. I mean, bloody hell. Right, Four of Cups at the bottom of the deck. And when I talk about this card, most often we're talking about things in terms of rejection, rejecting, that sort of stuff, right? But it does have another interpretation, kind of by the book interpretation, and that is boredom, apathy. It's a certain amount of dissatisfaction, emotional dissatisfaction with something in your environment or a state that you find yourself in. Well, obviously you're in that state of feeling bored, feeling apathetic. Like, sometimes it can be numb. It can be a state of ingratitude, and I don't actually feel like that's the case for you here, Gemini. It feels like, well, let's go to here, because I think this is the perfect example of it, right? We have this Nine of Wands with the Five of Wands and the Two of Pentacles clarifying it there. And the card that most specifically speaks to burden would be the Ten of Wands. But the Nine of Wands has shades of it too, as you would expect, because it's kind of on the build up to breaking point, right? So we've got these interpretations that we can apply, such as resilience, and I'm sometimes a little bit tongue-in-cheek with the way that I say, it's character building stuff. You might not enjoy it, but it is forging something really quite strong within you, It's a card of increasing resiliency in the face of challenge, in the face of difficulty. And it feels like, in some ways, when the Nine of Wands shows up, it is getting increasingly stacked in front of you, and you're like, for fuck's sake, like, how long do I have to endure all of this, And when the Nine of Wands appears, the general feeling is, well, a little bit longer, because it's not done with you yet. We haven't hit the 10. We haven't hit that completion. We haven't hit the end of it. It's building. It can also talk about boundaries, and I think that that's a really important thing. The boundaries that you set that keep you safe. And I would draw the distinction between boundaries and rules. I think they're important things to pay attention to. And sometimes how keeping those boundaries up can feel like a bit of a slog, right? That sometimes you don't necessarily feel the benefit of it, because the benefit appears to be outweighed in the first instance by the strain that you're under in trying to erect and maintain these things in the first place. What permeates through it all is this sense of having to keep putting one fucking foot in front of the other and keep going forwards, because there is an end in sight. It is coming here, but there's an understanding that there's probably going to be an escalation in the discomfort before that appears. And we do have the Five of Wands. We have a state of conflict. Now, it could well be, and I interpret that card really quite often in terms of an internal conflict, right? There is one way that you're being pulled, and then there's another, and it's difficult to know which way is the right way, right? Just pulled. I think that you're working too hard. I'm just going to say that. I know it's more of a kind of Ten of Wands kind of feel, but I do feel like you're being stretched and you're being pulled in lots of different directions. Now, at the point that I'm actually recording this, we are at the 24th of May, which according to some astrologers is the peak energy of the grand fixed cross that we've had, coming exact in the sky for a little while now. We've got Pluto in Aquarius squaring off against Mars in Leo, rather. And then we have the North Node and the South Node also. All four of them in this state of tension between them. And Jupiter, I believe, is also squaring Pluto, right? So there's additional tension over there too. And it very much fits with what I'm seeing here, right? Pulled in lots of different directions. But this can actually be outside of you too, because the conflict, as we put it like that, can be strife that you are experiencing within your interpersonal relationships. Maybe you've got friends who've fallen out and you're trying to find a way of kind of bringing everybody together. Maybe people have fallen out and you're like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, all of you, will you just bang your heads together and sort yourselves out, please? There are lots of different ways that this could occur. Whether it's inside or out, though, it's causing this point of tension in you. And it feels like a lot of slog without a lot of reward. But nevertheless, you're still in a place where you're feeling like you need to mediate here, right? Now, whether you're mediating with yourself and being all like, they've all just gone a bit crazy, it's okay, they'll sort themselves out in a minute, all they need is for me to be consistent in the middle of it, or whether it's this state of trying to, again, internally, trying to balance off what needs to be done, what must be done, the things that have to be juggled, your duties, your responsibilities, the sense of responsibility that you feel, as set against this emotional maelstrom that's going on in here in the background. I mean, maybe it is that there's all sorts of conflicts around you and nobody's quite noticed how much it's affecting you. I mean, Geminis are very, very sensitive, and particularly when it comes to group dynamics, I think. Because you are such a social butterfly, because you like to spend time with a lot of people, you love the new, the constant flow of new information that comes in as new people arrive in your life. You live for that stuff, and when it's discordant, when there's disharmony there, it can be really quite affecting for you. So the question is, excuse me, do you do whatever you need to make everything harmonious again? Which is to say, sort of take the shortcut. Or do you pay attention to the fact that what seems to be happening is some sort of change is being brought about within you? An increase in resilience in your ability to be able to weather these fluctuating dynamics of the friendships around you. I'm going to just pull another deck up here and look at that Two of Pentacles specifically. We've got the Queen of Swords. Now, it's your queen. It's Libra energy, but it's your queen. And it does talk about sifting information. It talks about being discerning about where you allow your energy to go. Now, sometimes Gemini energy can be a little bit all over the place. The Queen of Wands is about focusing that. It's about focusing it and paying attention to, everything, actually. Scrutinizing everything. Now, it's not very often, Gemini, that I sit here in front of you and say, let your mind rip on stuff. Because actually, for the most part, what I'm doing is sitting here and going, Gemini, you're in your head too fucking much. Step back every now and again. Give yourself a bit of breathing room. Except that I'm getting a strong, certainly with this Queen of Swords appearing here, strong correlations with what I was starting to see emerging in the Libra reading. Right there, fellow air sign. And additionally, Aquarius, who I did Aquarius yesterday. Or maybe the day before. I can't remember. Everything's fucking bleeding into each other at the moment. Which is to say, scrutinizing is actually important. Here, I am actively encouraging you to sit with all the different pieces of information that you have acquired about this discordant situation that you find yourself in, and the corresponding emotions that you have with it, and start being really objective about it. In some ways, maybe start being a little bit brutal about it, because perhaps what is being shown to you here is that some of the people that surround you, being big fucking drama llamas or not, and maybe the situation warrants it, are not right for you. Now, that's a difficult position for a Gemini to be in. I don't like cutting people out. I mean, you can. You absolutely can. But it's not where you like your energy to sit. The major arcana card for Gemini is the Lovers. It's one of them, at least, anyway. It's about union. It's about harmony. It's about everybody getting on. It's about everybody coming together. But something, it seems to me, is starting to sit badly with you, if I can put it that way. We've got the Fool card at the bottom of the deck, which is talking about freedom and liberation and release and trust and all those kind of things, right? But it's trust in a bigger process that seems to be going on here for you at the moment. And it does require your scrutiny. We notice here that Fox has got his little eye poking out there, and foxes get a bit of a bad rap, right? And I have chickens, I understand why foxes get a bad rap. But at the same time, they're crafty, they're wily, they're smart. There's a lot going on going on upstairs. You know, they're incredible problem solvers. And it seems to me that the calculated risk is for you spending the time in allowing yourself to use your swords in a way that I wouldn't often advise, and look for the veracity, right? Look for the truth in the situation. It's like there's something here that you've been kind of battling with, and I feel for the most part you've not been paying attention to the emotions that you have about it. Now, if we can just put those fucking pentacles down for a second and start scrutinizing the information, right? Doing it in a very logical, very detached, objective way, there's a certain picture that is starting to be formed here. Like I said, kind of makes you feel a little bit uncomfortable. Now, whether or not this relates to the way that you have behaved in a situation, I feel like that's a little less likely. I feel like it's what you're seeing in other people. And maybe you're starting to see an undercurrent of something maybe a little bit disloyal, maybe a little bit manipulative, maybe something a little bit sneaky, something that you don't like, right? And there's a word that was coming out in the Libra reading over and over again, and it was integrity. And I feel like I did make reference to it in Aquarius's reading also. Certainly with Aquarius, I was talking about the nature of free will and, you know, what purpose one's objectivity serves in the exercise of one's free will. And I feel like there's kind of shades of all of this coming in for your reading too. But when we move into your current energy, we've got the Ten of Cups. Now that is a beautiful card. I love that card. I'm not going to take anything away from that card. But to me, looking at the rest of the cards on the table, there's something that feels relatively idealistic about the presentation of this Ten of Cups, because we've got the Two of Wands underneath and we've got the Five of Cups. And the Five of Cups, obviously, half of the Ten of Cups here. I mean, this represents the culmination. Right? This represents peak emotional comfort and support and, you know, community, feeling part of a collective. It's got that sense of almost protection about it too, right? The protection of being around people that you really care about. And what I really, really love about Anatorian's art is that sometimes it looks one way and sometimes it looks another. And the way that I'm looking at it here is that this feels like two people who are actually kind of pulling away from each other, right? The hands are being held, but the motion is going that way. It's not, ooh, I've kind of wobbled a bit, quick grab my hand, I'll support you. It's more like that. But then in other times I've seen it a different way, you know? And then we have this Scorpio card, right? And so correspondingly, Plutonian card of the Five of Cups, the Lord of Disappointment. It's a card of grief, it's a card of loss, it's a card of bereavement sometimes, it's a card of resentment and bitterness, but almost always it is a card of focusing on the wrong thing. And I think what's started to become clear is, having taken all of this into account and recognising that this has been somewhat of an idealistic version of what particular friendships, what particular collectives have held for you, it's seeing you coming to a point, I think, where you're realising that something has to change. You know, the Two of Wands is a crossroads energy. That's the key word that we use. It's a crossroads. And it's about not the act of taking action externally to you. That would be the Three. It's about the process of weighing up what is actually going on inside of you, right? What you're seeing, how you're processing it, what this means for you. And you seem to be rolling this around, as you should be. I'm saying we're seeing enough to see that you should be rolling this around. You should be allowing that fizzy mental energy to be processing all of this, because that does the idealistic view of what the Ten of Cups represents to you have its reflection in the reality of the experience for you? Does it even have the potential for the reality of the experience? And so, in addition to that, I would question whether something is hanging around because historically it has always been there. That's something, you know, and I think a lot of us are guilty of maintaining friendships long beyond the point where they bring value to any of us, simply because they have always been there. I mean, in some cases it can be family too. You know, this notion that blood is thicker than water and we should hang out with our family no matter what, you know, and side with our family no matter what. I can see the value in it, but I also think that that excuses a multitude of problematic behaviours, which are then left to us to kind of internally process, and most of us do it the wrong way. Most of us internalise, you know, the kind of projections and all the things that come off our collective and go, well, that's who I am, that's what I'm made of. And this process that you're in at the moment seems to be one of filtration, if I can put it that way, you know, in so much as, what are you prepared to put up with in order to be able to call somebody a friend? And the answer to that has been, up until this point, an awful lot. But it seems like there's a light that's starting to shine on this, you know, relationship, perhaps a series of relationships with a set of people. And this question of whether you'd rather have fewer people in your collective, but be able to actually trust them, right? For this to be much more actualized than it currently is, as set off against having a shit ton of people in your environment and none of them having the capacity to ever actually add something of value to this. It's almost like you've realised that your thinking is kind of a little bit wonky when it comes to people. And there correspondingly is insight that you can gain into the way that you approach the sociable or the, you know, emotionally supportive or whatever, what it is that you're looking to get out of it, what you put in, and whether you get anything like that out in return. Ooh, goodness me. We have the Eight of Swords in reverse, and we have the Three of Cups. It's exactly what I was just saying here. You know, the Eight of Swords, when it appears in the upright, it's talking about mental restriction. It's actually a Gemini card. I believe it's Jupiter in Gemini, which is really awful, because it, you know, this way around, it talks about a true state of stasis that is achieved mentally, where we can't see any other way of doing something, right? So for it to come out in the reverse, as it has done here, what we're talking about is breaking through a particular set of thought processes, right? A particular cycle of thought, one that perhaps actually hasn't had that much engagement with you consciously, you know, it's just something that you're doing for the sake of doing it, right? Where you can see the light, you can see some sort of movement out, some sort of movement away, some sort of movement that was not possible to you prior to this card turning the other way around. And we have it here with the Three of Cups in reverse. Now, the Three of Cups specifically talks about emotional support networks. And I feel like you are casting your eye objectively. And I feel like, actually, to be fair, I feel like you're achieving a level of objectivity that at this point is somewhat surpassing Aquarius and Libra. They're very much in the process of analysing their own analysis, whereas you seem to have popped out the other side and gone, well, holy shit, look at all of these revelations. Now, obviously, these have consequences for, you know, the emotional support networks, the friendships, the family situations that you have going on around you, you know, wherever the collective is, which is basically just like more than you, is operating. But there are very, very real consequences for your understanding of how you relate to all of these. And I do feel like there's a strong sense of you breaking yourself free from this in some sort of way. Yes, in the literal sense, perhaps pulling away from people this month, or feeling yourself, in fact, drawn to other people, which is also entirely possible. Feels like a very sociable time. Gemini season, right? But this Son of Pentacles, this Knight of Pentacles, speaks about commitment. And the question of who you are prepared to commit yourself to and why, and the why being the most important part, is coming up really, really strongly in the here and now. You know, maybe it's a question of how much support and commitment is being demonstrated to you by the people that you find yourself surrounded with at the moment. Because what has passed, at least, it's kind of passed unscrutinized, unobserved from you, passing for behaviours that are passed for emotionally supportive. It seems are suddenly dawning on you that they're anything but. And you're kind of looking at it and being like, well, why? Why would I continue with this? You know, in some ways it's about a discovery of core values when it comes to the interrelationship that you have with other people, right? With yourself primarily, but with other people. And we've got the Ten of Swords sitting underneath this Knight of Pentacles. It's Virgo energy, by the way. So very much in keeping with this idea of scrutinizing, right? Virgo is the microscopic. Virgo is the detail of things, right? And looking at the detail of the commitment, looking at the detail of the reliability, dependability, all that kind of thing, like, suddenly it's coming up short. Which makes perfect sense then. Why we would be seeing the Wheel of Fortune and the Death card coming out. Right? This is significant. It's really significant. Everybody is having a really interesting June. You know, as far as the astrology goes, we've been led to understand that May is the month where everything's kind of at its peak. It's the most astrologically intense month of the year. But I think it was in the Libra reading where I drew a correlation between what we're seeing right now. And as some of you know, I went and did an ayahuasca ceremony in Mexico last year. And whilst at the point where you're tripping your box off in the jungle, it's incredibly intense. It's like acid on acid. It's mind-bending. The real work, the real consequences of that take place afterwards. It's in the assimilation of the information. It's about seeing the things that ayahuasca shows you and then working out what you're going to do in light of what she has shown you. Right? That's where the true life-changing stuff comes in. And I'm actually seeing June in some ways being much more intense for people because it's about what they're going to do with the information that they have now acquired, the things that they did not see before. And the answer for you is it's all fucking change, right? We've got an alignment coming very clearly into focus with your destiny, with the Wheel of Fortune. But the Wheel of Fortune also talks to me about things that you have learned. I've often compared it to the save point in a game. You know, you struggle on getting your bearings with the game, how all the controls work, you know, what is actually expected of you, what the core purpose of each level of the game is. And you fail a shit ton of times, and then you get it and you hit this save point, and from there, no matter what happens, no matter how spectacularly you fuck up in the future, you're only ever going to return to this point. The knowledge and the insight that you have at this point represents a graduation from where you have been before, but it's also the foundation of where you go next. It becomes the new default for you. That's what the Wheel of Fortune is here. And we have a card that speaks about profound transformation. Right? Transformation of you, for sure, of your circumstances, almost certainly, but of your ability to be able to reach towards what is your destiny. Now, I don't think that it is individual people that are holding you back. I have to be very, very clear about that, Gemini. More it is the internal circumstances that have you allowing people to behave in a certain way, to treat you in a certain way. You know, that those things that have gone on unquestioned and unscrutinized for the longest time, right? And this relationship, these relationships are all expressions of a particular way that you are seeing yourself, right? Allowing yourself to be treated. I was to say, right, we set the bar for other people on how we want to be treated in the way that we treat ourselves. And this would absolutely be an aspect of this. You know, the Nine of Cups is an interesting one. I think it has come up in every single reading that I have done. Not just the June readings, but also in the personal readings, I think. Because, and it all seems to hinge on this idea of what happiness actually is. Like, in order for you to reach that, unquestioningly, you're going to have to be vibing in that kind of fucking frequency yourself, right? You have to have management of your own emotions. Like, you cannot hit a 10 of Cups if you're coming in like that. There's just too much coming on. There's too much going on, right? And there's too much being ignored. He's got his back to all of this emotional stuff here. It's too low down, you know, the order of the cards. The nines are about how you manage everything. It's how you manage your boundaries. It's how you manage your energy levels. It's how you manage the way that you live, right? It's about how you manage your emotions. It's about what your dreams look like to you, your highest wishes, goals, hopes, and aspirations, and how you are a living embodiment of those things. And we'll get to the Nine of Swords shortly. But I feel like there's a complete change in what you think that you want for yourself versus what you now realize you've been living. And the boredom and the apathy and all that kind of thing actually might well be, at its heart, coming down to an idea of rejection. This feeling that we have that sometimes people can reject us whilst embracing us, right? They'll reject some aspect of us while taking in the rest and saying, well, that little bit of you is actually not very useful right here. You've got to take it as it resonates to you. But I think at its core, it is about rejection. And whether or not you're going to allow that to continue. Because the people that what we're talking about is reciprocity here, Gemini, I think. The way that you would unquestioningly accept anyone that you liked or that you cared for, right? Warts and all, flaws and all, versus the bits and pieces that people cherry pick of you. And why is that okay one way round? Or why is it okay that way round? Full stop. Why is it okay for people to do that for you, to you, and you wouldn't dream of doing it for other people? There's a split standard here. And June is all about rectifying that, I think, because we have the Justice card, and fuck me, you know, which is very strongly karmic. And remember that karma is neutral. It's not punishment from the universe. It is merely the consequences of your actions. Sometimes the consequences of your inaction. It is entirely neutral. And it depends very much on your perspective, much like the Nine of Swords talks about here. Now, you know, I've giggled with you over the last few months about how when I did the 6-month overviews for Gemini, I said, oh, it's really simple. All you have to do is control your mind, right? That's great. And then by the time I got to the end of the 6-month period, I was like, holy shit, Gemini, I'm so fucking sorry. I realise what I've been asking of you. This is no small thing. This is a huge thing. Please don't be terrified, but it's necessary. And what I feel is going on here is we're starting to see the culmination of that. Now, whether you feel like you've achieved, I don't know, like Severus Snape levels of mental training, fucking like a Jedi or something like that, and control my mind so that I can literally now levitate fucking spaceships out of swamps and shit like that. Yeah, we often think mastery of something is going to feel like that. Like we're literally just going to be able to focus and we can pull things out of fucking anywhere. And the reality is, sometimes it feels very different to that. You know, I've been talking a little bit in the last week about discovering faith, my faith in me, and how it feels very different to the way that I had expected it to feel. And it's actually come about accidentally because I've let some stuff go that I didn't realise I was hanging on to. And there's a peace, there's a calmness that has come with it, so that I feel almost stoic. In the proper sense of Stoic philosophy, I feel actually quite stoic about everything. But I feel very strong and very stable and extremely resilient as a result of it. And it hasn't taken any aggression, it hasn't taken any need to fight. I'm a fire sign, so I'm always fighting, you know. Generally speaking, fighting the universe, right? Fighting people who know better, that kind of stuff, right? And it's something entirely different. The mastery of your mind isn't putting the swords down every single time. It isn't about going, well, I'm not allowed to think about this, right? I must feel only. It's about having the wisdom to discern when each of those is appropriate and being able to utilize them accordingly. Like, there's a reason why you've been given a fizzy brain, Gemini. There's a reason why your brain pops all over the place. It's incredible pattern recognition. It's an incredible problem-solving situation. But when it's left unfettered, as we might put it, what happens is you spiral into overthinking. You think too hard, too furiously, too deeply about things, and before you know it, you've completely paralysed yourself. Or you end up, you know, reaping unintended consequences of your actions, or what you have said, you know? True mastery, like I said, is about that discernment. It's about the wisdom of being able to walk both paths. Check in with the emotions, what the fuck is going on there, but also get your objectivity out and be like, oh, thinking about the way that I think is sometimes a little bit mind-bending, but in this situation, the two things are coming together. Thinking about the way that you think and also feeling what you feel. And then being able to fizz around and find an actual solution to this. Something very practical, something very, very material, very much in the here and now. And we have the World card. As I referred to it before, a card of graduation. This is a Saturnian card. This is about the hard work that you put in and correspondingly the benefits that come from it. And I think too often when it comes to things that are Saturnian in nature, like we were feeling at the beginning of this 6-month period, when we were talking about what was going to be required from you, there's so much capacity for us to be overwhelmed at the thought of everything that we would have to do to make this work. But we're looking at it with the eyes of a beginner. We're looking at it from the eyes of someone who has not achieved that mastery, and we're like, holy fuck. It's like when I went to university, I expected to come out sounding like fucking Rumpole of the Bailey, you know, just being able to just, you know, spout the black letter of the law, you know, absolutely memorized in here, word for word, statutes on any given situation. And actually, the reality is that's not what a fucking law degree is about at all. A law degree teaches you where to find the law and how to think about it in a logical way. The black letter of the law changes, you know, at the whim of Parliament whenever they decide they're going to, you know, fast forward through the latest bullshit legislative method of control. Let's put it that way, right? what we lose sight of is the benefit that comes from learning the lesson properly and accepting it for what it is. I think control of the mind is something that you had one idea about 6 months ago. In the reality, in you passing the class with a grade A, it's actually something entirely different. And that's all right. That's good. Because it's setting you up beautifully for where you go next, what happens next. And it's all there in the Nine of Swords. Not in the upright, but in the reverse. You know, the Nine of Swords is the only card in the tarot where the swords are placed horizontally. And that always seemed significant to me. It was always stood out as a thing. And then the more I sat with the tarot, the more I noticed things, and I came up with this relatively arbitrary rule. And it's relatively arbitrary because I don't purely use the Waite Smith. I've got a billion fucking I have actually an embarrassment of tarot decks, most of which I don't ever fucking touch. I'm just like a bit of a magpie for shiny art. Anyway, and this arbitrary rule is that generally speaking, swords up represent truth and honour and integrity and good things like wisdom, you know, information, all that kind of thing. And swords in the reverse indicate the reverse. They talk about falsehoods and lies and misapprehensions, you know, humiliation, betrayal, mental pain, emotional pain. So why then would the Nine of Swords, a card that it seems, on the face of it at least, has a very clear meaning, and that is, God, everything's fucking terrible. Why wouldn't the swords be down? Well, for me, it's because it says that this is all about perspective, right? Yeah, it's about overthinking. And overthinking is something that you can control. Your perspective actually is something that you control. If you willingly go and look for another perspective on things, it changes the nature of what you're seeing in front of you. You know, just as the Eight of Swords is about like narrowing your field of vision and going, I am stuck, I am trapped, I can't get out of this in any sort of way whatsoever. I mean, often the answer with the Eight of Swords is staring you right in the fucking face, but you can't see it. Or maybe you can see it, but you decide that it comes at too much of a cost. And so it's better for you if you just stay where you are with the blindfold over your eyes and whatnot. But the Eight of Swords has already shown up in the upright, in the reverse, beg your pardon, for you. And the effect that that has had on you here is that new perspectives have been achieved. You know, another way of looking at this is the things that you're worrying about actually don't have that much of a basis in reality, right? They are an expression of an overactive mind. This is about controlling that. Remember how I said the nines were about how you managed that particular suit. This is about how you manage your mind. It is about losing the fear. It can be about standing in your integrity. But whichever way around it is, and all of them may apply at the same time, Gemini, what you have here is a situation whereby you are sailing right to the top of the fucking class, and the changes that you are going to make as a result of the insights that you are getting here is absolutely profound. The grand fixed cross, as I was saying before, right? You've got Pluto on one side, you've got Mars on the other, and then you've got the North and the South node. The South node representing, you know, the body of wisdom and experience that you have garnered in a past life, but also all of the crap that comes with that too. And the North node representing the highest expression of you that is possible for you to achieve in this lifetime, and how you go about the act of allowing that into your life, embodying that, embracing that. Controlling the mind, for sure. Knowing when it's right to use that and when it is not. And to take action accordingly. So you are being slingshotted. I was going to say slungshot, which actually should be if English was in any way consistent, should be the way that that word is, but it's not. So slingshotted, as clumsy as that is, will have to do. Catapulted, let's use that word instead. You are being catapulted towards your destiny. And I genuinely think you have nothing to fucking worry about with it, Gemini. Because you are being freed. 100% you are being freed from the things that have held you back. Tell me that Wheel of Fortune and Death. Let's get another card for that. Oh my life, I fucking love tarot. And I fucking love tarot for this because it's the simplicity, right? I've talked a lot on this channel, and I'm approaching my 4-year anniversary of being on YouTube now, right? We have talked a lot about how very fucking simple a lot of healing stuff is, right? It can actually be reduced to things like let it go, get out of your own fucking way, right? Stuff like that. Incredibly simple. Almost so simple as to take us to a point where we consider it to be entirely reductive. It's like, it can't be that simple. If it was that simple, everybody would do it. And they don't. And I can't. But there's a difference between simple and easy. And sometimes the most simple solution is the right one. I would say actually it's 99 for 1, to be honest. It's the simple solution that makes more sense. It's the crap that we put in the way that stops us being able to see that. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's easy. It can be. And I think it gets easier with time as we align ourselves more with an understanding of the profundity of that statement and how actually it is a choice at every given step of the way. It can represent a time of incredible hardship sometimes, particularly when it's pulling at the foundations of who we think we are. But it is exactly that fucking simple. And it seems to me like you have broken through, Gemini. You know, the Temperance card, in addition to talking about balance and moderation and all those kind of things, speaks to healing. But it speaks to healing that comes having conquered adversity. The adversity's been in your own mind. And in the conquering of adversity and the bringing of moderation and temperance to your mental processes and your emotional processes, the door is opening up to a whole new way of living. And that might have its expression in all sorts of different ways, right? It could be finally not giving too much of a fuck about what anybody else thinks and just doing your thing. You know, you're being released, Gemini, and you're not being released by the universe. You are releasing yourself. And now the absolute potential of what the Ace of Wands can hold for you is there for the taking. You can do anything that you fucking want. And if you tell yourself that you can't, well then you're right in that case too. But I feel like the time of telling yourself that you can't, or even implying that you can't, is coming to an end. I mean, June is an incredibly exciting month for you, and an incredibly fucking powerful month for you. So if there are things that you've been thinking about doing, then being on like, maybe I'll just carry on a little longer the way that I have been doing. I feel like that's going out of the window. It's like, no, now is the time. It's a time of initiation for you. And the initiation has come off the back of the transformation of what it is that has been holding you back. Future's looking very bright, Gemini, and I'm fucking excited for you. Right, I'm going to go over to Vimeo now. We're going to have a look at June specifically, because there's going to be some stuff for you to navigate. There's a lot of overwhelming energy here, and I want you in the best possible shape to be able to receive that and work with it as possible. So if you would like to join me over there, you're very, very welcome to do so. Or you can potter over to Circle, come join up there. Maybe watch for your other signs too, if that's appropriate for you. But if not, no shade. I mean, Gemini, there's a lot going on here, and it feels to me like you're very much rising to it. Rising up to meet it. Now you've taken the concrete boots off, and that's so fucking exciting, I can't even tell you. So, I'm going to leave it there. Know that I love you all very, very much, and I'll see you soon.